Hey everyone, welcome back to Chocolate and Spice 2 Brown Women Talk. I'm Nidhi.
And I'm Neha. Today we are diving into a conversation that's close to our hearts, literally. We're talking with our little cousin Divya, who's 22 now. Divya was born and brought up in the US, making her a first generation Indian American. And today we're discussing challenges and fun growing up as first generation Indian American.
Sounds great, so let's just dive in. Divya, you have grown up navigating both American and Indian cultures. How does that feel? For example, when you are at home versus with friends at school, do you feel like you are switching between different versions of yourself? Or do you ever feel you are too American or some spaces are too Indian for you?
Absolutely. I feel like the way that I think about it is like I definitely had a sort of transition in my life where I think when I was younger, like elementary, middle school, I definitely felt that I was not American enough because I think that's the age that you're sort of like much more influenced by what's happening at home and parents. And then you're kind of starting school. And at that age, probably like there's a lot of bullying happening, or you're kind of trying to find friends for the first time, or you're navigating that social American space for the first time. So I think that I vividly remember sort of it felt that you're kind of always out of the loop. Like it's the same feeling as if like um, some movie or some show is trending, and it feels that everybody has watched it and you haven't, and you have like no idea what they're talking about. I definitely have memories of that. And then I feel as I got older, kind of like probably middle school, high school, college, um, I kind of like started to embrace the fact that I am Indian and that is who I am, and I can't, and I'm proud of that. And so I started to be in more Indian spaces, and just in general in California, there's a huge brown population. So just being around brown people was not that hard to do. I definitely took some initiative, but then I'm in those spaces and now I'm not feeling brown enough. So I remember like then I'm experiencing the same thing in those spaces where they've watched every Bollywood movie, they have them completely memorized. Um, they're like fluent in Hindi or whichever language they're speaking at home. And I'm having that ABCD experience where like I don't know, uh, I'm not able to kind of keep up, or like I don't know what's going on. So I feel like I had those two experiences in kind of different areas of my life. Um, and I do definitely a thing that helped was just having friends that felt the same way, even if they weren't brown, just them being American and their parents being immigrants from somewhere else, um, realizing that it's sort of like normal to feel in between the worlds, and having people that felt the same way like definitely helped. Um, and yeah, even to this day, I kind of, it depends what space I'm in. I definitely probably do the code switching thing where I'm kind of leaning more towards what I know and which culture I feel is best fit in the environment, and just kind of navigating each space as I go. And I think one thing about me is I do, I understand that to grow you have to be uncomfortable. And so I think my new normal right now is just always feeling that I don't fully belong, and that's okay, and just embracing that. And I think that's where I'm at right now.
Mhm.
And we'll see where that goes as I get older and older.
All right.
Oh
Yeah,
my
so that
gosh.
means, yeah, that
Sorry, I was just going to say such an amazing answer. So much to learn from this.
the wisdom, you are truly wise beyond your age.
Aw, thank you.
So what are you talking about is it sounds like it is kind of inconsistent sense of belonging. Is that how
Yeah,
you feel, experience it? Okay, all right.
definitely.
Yeah. One experience that I want to share, and Didi, I don't know if you have felt or experienced this when people ask us, where are you from? So I'll share a quick experience. So I have been here for 15, 16 years now. And when I was fairly new, 5, 6 years in States, somebody asked me, where are you from? And I moved here in my early 20s. So, when you've lived somewhere for like 5, 6 years, like, where are you from? I am from Pittsburgh. I used to live in Pittsburgh. And then that person said, no, 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 where are you really from? And
Mm,
clearly my accent doesn't sound like I'm from America. And that And I was young at that time, and I'd never thought of it that way. And the way the person said it, where are you really from, kind of said that, oh, you probably don't belong here. I don't know, maybe it was my insecurity, but that question made such a deep impact on me. Now I'm a grown woman with a married with a child, and I'm confident. I have no issues with like self-worth. Even now, when somebody asks me, where are you from, I say I live in Austin, Texas. I
Mm.
never say I am from. And then I kind of judge if the person is actually asking from which country, and then say, I live in Austin, Texas. I am from India. But I never gave the same answer the way I said when I was like naive and I said, I am from this place.
Mm.
So, yeah, I mean, I just wanted to share. That's how I feel. I don't know if you have
Yeah,
experience.
so many times. And at this point, like, I very confidently say, well, I'm from California. I'll give it an interesting example. So I'd gone to um, UK, Scotland recently, and there somebody met me and they're like, where are you from? And I mean, it automatically comes to, like, I've been living here for so long. I just said, I'm from California. And they looked at me like, oh, I thought you would be from somewhere in South Asia. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, definitely I'm from India, but I live in California. And then, of course, in the US also it happens. Also, it happens when you meet a lot of Indians, like they
Mhm.
will automatically assume you from India, which is totally fair. And like even yesterday, I was in a shop and there was an Indian person. I was chatting with them, and they're like, "Where are you from?" And I said, "Well, I've been living here for over 2 decades, but I am from this state in
Mhm.
India." So, uh, yeah, I feel like at this point, I feel totally okay. I'm from the US. I was born and brought up in India, and both countries like are amazing, and I just go with the flow there. So I don't know, like Divya, if you faced similar questions and how you answer that.
Definitely, like I get asked that a lot, and I feel also when I'm meeting brown people and they're asking me that question, um, my I mean, you guys know, but for the audience, my dad is from North India and my mom is from South India. So that's like an extra sentence that I have to share where they're like, okay, so that's why you look this way. I'll always get a comment like that of like, oh, okay. I mean, I would have thought this. And I think also as I've gotten older, maybe my face is changing and I'm looking different. And I feel like that piece oddly, like there's definitely a side note, but like that piece oddly of like people trying to place where from India I'm from has always kind of like stuck with me where I'm like, that's interesting. Like 3 times in a row, they've thought that I'm not from the South at all. And then one time this. So that's always been interesting because I don't know what that means. Because my sister also, I have one younger sister. Me and her do not look alike at all. So like to me in my head, I have no idea which feature is north and south and what they're picking up. So that is additionally something like a sort of like a third part of that question that always kind of confuses me of how to answer it. But I always do the same thing where I'm like, I'm fully Californian. Like I have always been here. I It never makes sense for me for the answer to be like I'm from India because I have only been there like I think 2 or 3 times when I was younger. So that naturally I have to say I'm from California, I'm from the Bay Area, I'm from the States, and they're never satisfied with that answer, of course. And so to me it's almost like I feel like it's a something about the question has always sounded uncomfortable, and I could not place like what is wrong about them asking the question. Nothing wrong about them asking, but it's sort of like odd for me to say that I'm from India when I have much less connection to that place. Um, so yeah, it's always like it's a interesting conversation, and I feel like I end up learning more about what information they're trying to get out of me than it is, anything past that. But yeah.
It's amazing.
I
Yeah, I mean,
think
it's
you're
such a
always
different
problem
context.
solving. What do they want to get out? So,
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's amazing. Just moving on to thinking about how we grew up in families here, especially you were born and brought up here. So you probably understand the American systems better than your parents did in some ways. And what's it like being a translator for them? Of the language probably, but also of the culture. And also, like, what's the most significant cultural difference that you've helped your family navigate here?
Mm. That's a good question. I think being the first child is just tricky in that way because um, I also don't understand things the first time. Like, I'm also learning them. Like, I don't feel like I'm experienced enough to explain anything to my parents, especially as a child, like growing up. So it is sort of like you just feel like you're unqualified for the role of translator your whole life because you're also translating the cultural difference in real time and then trying to explain it to people. And I think maybe the most difficult, or maybe the one that comes to mind first, is just like the difference in like the social life or like sort of the maybe better the balance between academics and social life when you're studying, because I think that's the one that just was the most difficult for me to navigate. Where um, obviously, like a lot of my friends that I was making in school, it was very kind of like normal in American culture to like just hang out after school, as kind of spontaneously, or like all the birthday parties, sleepovers, just kind of going to the mall like unsupervised. Like that was all very normal for like the that I was hanging out with at school. But to me, I felt like I was a criminal if I asked my parents permission to go do that. Like I felt like I was like, um, I knew that I shouldn't even ask the question. Like I felt guilty even asking permission, because A, like the answer is no, and then B, you're going to stress them out. Um, so I think like navigating like what is, I don't know, like what is a good balance for me, and like what do I need to like, which battles to pick, almost like what should I advocate to my parents that it's like, no, I need to go out and hang out with my friends, or I want to do this, so I'm gonna ask. And then when to be like, I think the answer is gonna be no, like I'm just not even gonna worry about it. And on top of that, it's like, just I think you feel that you're disappointing your like American side, and you're sort of disappointing your friends a lot by always being the friend that has to say no, or like, don't even invite me because I don't think I can do that. You kind of feel like you are either disappointing your parents by asking permission and stressing them out about it, or you feel like you're disappointing your friends by like not being able to show up to a birthday party, or to them that's an important event, and kind of not being able to invest in the friendship as much. So I feel like that one, kind of translating that's sort of normal, or that's like, like nourishing those friendships in that way, is something that I feel that I am supposed to do. Trying to explain that was probably the most difficult thing. Um, yeah, and probably much more, but I think that's the one that was the hardest for me.
Yeah, no, totally understand. As you know, Aryan, my son is also similar in a similar situation, so I'm sure he's been struck with us similar issues as you. Definitely great to hear your perspective. And I'm wondering about your career path. Like, did it feel like you were also influenced by wanting to honor their journey, or did you have your own dreams that you kind of weren't able to express? I'm sorry, Millie is, as you can see, she wants attention, but please go ahead.
Yeah, I think my parents were they were very understanding of the fact that like both my parents are software development, um, and I think they were very. I think what it was is that like they did want me at first maybe to at the most explore the typical paths that are sort of like seen as successful or seen as the most prestige. Um, but I think like along the way, they definitely did realize that it's like, um, you need to do whatever you're the best at, or you need to do whatever you are going to be motivated to be the best at, or do well in, or just like kind of sustain. So I think like I was very lucky that my parents weren't what a lot of my friends experienced, where they were like, you have to be doctor, lawyer, engineer. Instead, they were more, whatever you do, you have to be the best. Like whatever you do, you need to come back with some proof that you're getting something done and you're committed to it, and you need to sort of prove to us that you have discipline, and you need to be hardworking, you need to show up, you need to be punctual, you need to be like sort of like professional. And I think they set high expectations of that for me. My mom, like my sister, when she hears this, she's gonna laugh, but my mom always wanted me to be a leader. Like she was like, whatever you do, you need to do it with like confidence, and you need to do it with a smile on your face, and you need to like pioneer something. Like you need to have energy, intrinsic energy in whatever path you pick. I will support whatever path you pick, but you need to be good, and you need to be happy, and you need to be like well charged by it, in a way. And so that was very lucky. Like I just had very good cards there. Um, but I do think in that way, like I did always have that pressure of like, okay, I don't have to be one of these three things, but whatever I do, I have to be very good. And I obviously grew up in the Bay Area. It's extremely competitive. Everybody is trying to go to an Ivy League college. That's what it felt like. It was just a very like, pressure cooker environment. So I think I was lucky that I got the privilege to be able to have so many resources around me, first of all, to explore so many different career paths. But I do think like I always kind of explain it as like not a pressure to be the best, but a pressure to be validated, a pressure to be recognized, a pressure to be like seen as the best was always on me. So I kind of felt like I always had to chase whatever trophy, accolade, like, academic kind of like label that was available to me that I knew I could get. I had to get it. And then I think obviously because I didn't pick something that was engineering, lawyer, doctor, I almost had to try twice as hard to be recognized, because I was doing something that was already like I had internalized as disappointing somebody, and like I had chosen a path that people didn't understand what was considered successful. I kind of had to prove to everyone that I was on the right path and that I picked the right thing. And I think in that way, it was a lot of pressure on me. And for the audience, I picked design. I graduated from UC Davis a year ago now, with a major in design, a minor in sustainability in the built environment, and a minor in museum studies. And prior to college and during college, I did software development, like front end stuff. Didn't love it that much, and then transitioned to UI UX design, which I really loved. So I've been doing that as a consistent job for the last 3-4 years. So, and then prior to that, I had experience in whatever my high school offered in engineering. My high school offered there was like a business kind of organization or school. I did really well there. It was like anthro and social science. I did really well there. So I was kind of able to I think the confidence that I have in my career path definitely comes from having tried everything else that everybody else told me to do. There was bio, there was speech and debate. So I was trying to figure out what I was good at as soon as possible so I could get recognition right away. And I was definitely like sprinting in like 5 different career path directions, trying to figure out like where I can be the best as soon as possible. And I think like that was the experience that I had. And I'm lucky that that's what I had, because that worked for me. But yeah, definitely I can see myself maybe pursuing other things if I was not in that environment, maybe.
And you've been so good at everything, honestly, Divya. I've seen you from when you were so little. Like, I think you're naturally a leader, and I think parents encourage that thing in you. And, it's like Nidhi and I often discuss the first child, the first daughter. It's like we take it upon ourselves to do everything right by our parents and by the society, which is an additional intrinsic pressure we have. But you've done amazing, and I'm glad that you were able to jump to something that really gives you happiness and you're able to excel at.
Thank you so much.
And the younger sibling always learns from the older one. So, yeah, Sonia in that case is lucky, just like me. She's
Yeah.
probably.
That is true.
Yeah, that was amazing. Yeah, Divya, you're doing great. I mean, we have seen you, from the time you were little, and apart from being a good leader, you're also very kind, and
Oh,
that is what we have seen in your journey. You have so much empathy. You're so kind. You lead with empathy. So that's amazing. Yeah.
thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, so I am going in a different direction. I think you've covered a little portion of what my next question is going to be. So you are first in your family to experience many things like American high school, dating culture, college applications. What's it like having a family roadmap for these experiences?
Oof. Um, yeah, I think it's hard. I mean, there's no denying that for sure. I think it's something that like me and my mom kind of talk about a lot now, is that I think her having Sonia, my younger sister, we're 5 years apart, so it's kind of like a good distance of time, where she doesn't. I hope that she doesn't feel that she's just kind of like, living the second part of my life. Like it's not too back to back with my milestones. She gets a little bit of a distance, but still like I'm able to kind of help her with things, or kind of she has a sense of a roadmap. But I think my mom experiencing Sonia's journey, gives her a lot of kind of clarity of like how much I had to figure out by myself, because I think Sony's picking a different path, definitely. And so there's some new things about it, but then obviously she's just going through high school, she's going through college applications, she's going through like figuring out the social life. So a lot of things are the same as well. And I think my parents kind of seeing it a second time with someone that has a different personality, is very kind of like enlightening for them to see how much of it I didn't share with them. And I think my approach to having to navigate it blindly was like I just really didn't ask my parents, for advice, or I really did not involve them with things that I didn't feel like I needed them for, or I didn't feel that they could help me with. And that might not have been the truth. Like they definitely could have helped me with a lot of things, and they definitely had that advice. But me being stubborn in my mind, like I maybe wanted to prove to myself and others that I could do it by myself. Like that was definitely also my fault, where I didn't ask for help when I definitely could have. But I think one thing that I did that I'm very proud of is that I sort of took a lot of initiative to seek out my own mentors. And that meant, I mean, like naturally, I was kind of like in every accelerated class possible. So I was always with, people that were, peers that were a year or so older than me. And I would bother them so much about just like asking every question that I could, about college application, about their experiences with this. Like, how did this class go? Like, would you recommend like this or that? Or like, this is kind of what I want to do. Like, just like before understanding what a coffee chat was, like kind of doing that. Um, and even, any professor, any adult in my life that even like I just admired the way that they're living their life. Like I admired that they are very kind and very peaceful, and like they're even if much older than me, like, and I don't even know what it is that I'm admiring about them. Just kind of building some kind of, relationship with them to kind of understand a little bit of like what they went through, and just having them as some pool of wisdom, I think was very helpful for me. And in a way, I guess I was forced to, but it taught me the skill of like being selective about what my influences are, because I think especially as like a young person, but then navigating a life that you don't have an example set for you, I think it taught me that I'm allowed to like look at how an adult is living their life and not want to do that, and remove them as an influence mentally. And it is my responsibility to pick out where I want to learn from and what I want to be influenced by. And it's not always just the people in my life. It's also like the movies I'm watching and the social media accounts I'm following and the friends that I'm making in my life. Like, it taught me very early in my life that it is my responsibility to keep myself in the right environment to move in the direction that I want to go.
Yeah, that is amazing. That even had the foresight. You're so young to know the support team or the community that you want to keep. So that is amazing. And you answered my question. My next question was going to be, when you're stressed or overwhelmed, whom do
Hmm.
you turn for guidance? And you said you found your mentors, you found your support system. You also identified who are the people you want to follow and who are the people who you want to cut off from your life because you just feel they are not a good influence. So
Yeah.
that is amazing. One other sensitive question that I have for you is, have you ever felt like you couldn't share certain struggles with your parents because they wouldn't understand your context?
Definitely. I think there's probably a lot of things today that I am not sharing with them. And honestly, it's not even because I feel that they wouldn't understand or they would judge me or like anything like that. I don't even think that's the case anymore. I think it's kind of connected to my previous answer where it's not a habit for me to share anything with them because when I was growing up I didn't. So now it's not natural for me to go to them for advice. Um, and I only really understood how I only really realized that I wasn't doing that after kind of making friends with people that are closer to their parents or that do rely on their parents for like advice and more of a friendship. Um, I didn't even realize that that's a thing that I could do, honestly. Um, and so I think for a lot of people, it's they're not going to their parents because of they feel they won't understand or they feel they'll feel some judgment, which is fair. But I think for me, it's just not a habit. Like I didn't build that. I didn't. It's my fault. Like I didn't build that relationship with my parents. So now I just feel uncomfortable going and telling them anything or asking for help. I think in general, I'm very bad at asking for help. So it's like especially difficult almost to go to the two people that have watched you your whole life and like the advice will be spot on. And I think in a stubbornness I almost don't want to hear something if it's not if I think that it will contradict what I think. Like I think it's a lot of it is just me um having to kind of like unlearn and relearn um what my support system could be, because it was probably the truth, in my like early teenage years that my parents don't like understand the American system or culture, and so maybe they were not helpful. But now it's not the truth. Like now I'm in the corporate world. Like these are probably the best people I could ask for advice, and it's just not like natural. It's a little bit difficult for me. So it's something that I'm working on, like trying to, in general, ask for more help. And it starts with identifying it within myself. Um, and it starts with the internal dialogue within myself of not judging myself first, because obviously if I think that if I go tell someone something and they're going to judge me, that means that that's the internal dialogue in my own head and I've sort of judged myself already. So I think it is like a step by step process, unfortunately, and like I have to work on like I have to work on what's here first before I kind of fix things with other people. So I think that's where I'm at with that. But my parents, they're not judgmental about like what my life is. I think we have an understanding that like there's some things that they are not going to understand, and we just have to like I just have to explain it a little bit better, and that's kind of always been the case. So it is very much my fault in a lot of ways, but it takes time.
You have so many quotable quotes.
I
I
know.
must have a field day taking your quotable quotes and sharing with everyone. Amazing. That's such a thoughtfully spoken answer. Thank you for
Thank
sharing.
you.
I think I was going to ask you a bit more about college, but I think you've covered a lot of it, so it's really good to understand. Um, this question is going to come across as like a very different one from what we're just discussing. But you mentioned about, you being first generation American. Going back to our initial question about when people ask you where you're from, it's kind of confusing. If you could change one thing about how first generation Indian Americans are perceived or treated, what would it be?
That's a good one. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of different answers with this one, but one that comes to mind for me is that I think, like, within ourselves, within that kind of first gen, like, born here immigrant, like, I think there's a lot of kind of um, competition within ourselves, probably subconsciously, of like, I'm sure you've heard this word of like, who is the most whitewashed, or like, who is the most angrezi, like, who is the kind of least culture, like, least cultured of us. Like, I think there is sort of like so much division within ourselves sometimes, and it's very subconscious. I think the psychology of it is probably just like people that are more connected to their culture are proud of it, and so we everybody is just fighting for a sense of belonging. So you kind of mentally create your own divisions in your head where you feel the best about yourself, or like the best about your identity. And so naturally, like, you separate yourself when you divide things. And I think, like, it's sort of unfortunate, because I think the best way to learn about your culture is to be around other people that you feel belongingness with, or you share any type of trait with. So I think I've seen that a lot in college and just like young spaces. And that was kind of one of the places where I was like, it was a learning experience for me, because I was like, okay, I'm like around brown people and I should be feeling better, but I'm not. Like, I'm feeling like now I'm too American, like, what's going on? And, it just takes some time to find the space that's correct for you, because since moving to Sacramento, and just like it, the experience of having to sort of feel like you're restarting your life, by moving to a new place and post grad and the first like 9 to 5 job, like, it's a lot of it. It is like feels like a fresh slate, even if it's not. So, like, being selective about the brown spaces that I'm going to, where they're actually very welcoming and very kind of community oriented, and they don't have that sense of like, they're sort of quizzing me at the door of like, what do you know, like, where are you from, like, you know how cultured are you, like, there was none of that. Like, just finding those spaces, I think, like, taught me that that's possible, and that every person is different, and just being around brown people is not enough. Like, I am at a point now where I can ask for more, and I think it's a healing thing, because as a child, maybe the best, and you're kind of defined to your hometown, maybe the best option that I had was just being in the room with the most brown people was the best that I could do. But now, as an adult that is completely mobile and free to pick what spaces I'm in, I can now ask for more. I can now ask for a space where I fully feel comfortable, welcome, and authentic. And so life is just trial and error. Everything is trial and error. And like, the sense of belonging is going to change, based on every room that you're in. And it's just about, I guess, like, not giving up and not settling, and like being honest with myself about what my feelings are in the room, and like addressing any discomfort that I'm feeling. And I think that would be what I would tell other people that are in my shoes, or experiencing the same thing, is like, it's okay if we haven't found our space yet. If you're feeling uncomfortable about something, like, that's okay. And you don't need to be around these people just because you feel that that's going to make you more cultured, or that's the kind of like assimilation that you're, trying to experience. Like, better things can come. Like, you don't have to settle here. And like, there's so many people on the planet. And it's just a matter of like finding the spaces that are best for you.
What an empowering and self-aware answer.
Yeah, self-awareness is a big one, right? I mean, it is like you truly
Super.
know where you stand, what do you want, and you're working towards it. So that
Yeah.
is
Thank
amazing.
you.
Very, very amazing. Just one last question. Is there something, first of all, is there something else you'd like to share for our audience? And also, how can our audience support you? Is there something you'd like to? Yeah.
That's a very sweet question. I feel like I'm at a point where I don't have any like huge projects or anything that I'm putting out, just because, as I said, like this is my, I feel like first year in the real world, like post grad, and I'm restarting and anything. So truly, like more than I can plug or offer anything to anyone, just like um, if you guys have a comment section or anything where the podcasts are, like if anyone has advice for me about just, everybody kind of goes through it, but like the feelings of like starting adulthood in the early 20s, and like I'm definitely experiencing what everybody says of like feeling lost or like trying to find your direction and like not knowing if you're on the right path. And I think it's the transition from like having some sense of like so much structure of what's a path and what's, you know, the right path because of education and academics, and then being kind of like thrown out here and like, you know, you have to reset your timeline and goals and everything. Like if anyone has advice for me, like I would very much appreciate it. um and just kind of like, just like the sense of vision and like goals and like how to like redefine what is like a successful and productive day, like that's kind of what I'm working on and like unlearning and relearning. So if anyone has advice for me, but um yeah, and if anyone wants a UI UX freelance designer, like I'm open for that as well. Like I work at a nonprofit right now, 9 to 5, and that has been really, really wonderful. Like it's been a great kind of like first job out, because um, a lot of people experience like the exploitation of being a new grad in their first job, and definitely when you're working at a nonprofit, I mean, it's difficult hours and work and such, but people have been very nice, like wonderful, like management team and company. So um, all of that has been wonderful. But like the advice of like what is the next step or what is the right direction and everything, like that is definitely something I am thinking about every day. And I graduated from UC Davis. A lot of the biggest kind of projects and spaces that I've created were organizations at UC Davis. So if anyone is headed there soon or kind of like interested in that school or at that school right now, like happy to talk about it. Like I definitely feel very proud of the leadership positions that I held at UC Davis. I was able to found my own organization, um, which is just like a student-led club where we work on a lot of social justice projects. And it's very like people first, position second, which I always say, where we interview people and we understand their interests and like what is intrinsically driving them, regardless of your major, regardless of your career path. We bring everyone together and then we kind of allow them to, the freedom to create their own projects. And the essence of it is to intersect research and art and design and technology, and to center like data driven research at the beginning. And a lot of it has been kind of relearning what good research is and centering like a human centered design and a user centric research. And a lot of it is kind of like teaching our cohort and reminding us that research that's out there right now is not good enough because it has not included a sample size outside of like a white middle-aged male. And so kind of redoing a lot of research to be able to redirect the outcome of our projects. Some of the projects we did were art exhibitions, short films, websites, educational hubs. We painted a drum as like an art installation, like so many wonderful things. So if anyone is looking for things like that or spaces like that, like that's the kind of work that I do and I hope to do for the rest of my life or as long as life lets me. So yeah, happy to chat about anything like that or share more about that as well.
Sure. We will make sure we get all the information and we'll have it in the show notes in the blog, Divya, so it'll be easily accessible by you. But thank you so much for sharing your story with us and being so honest, sharing all the complexity and joy of growing up as a first American, first generation American.
Yeah, and what struck me the most is how you're not just surviving the two worlds, you're actually really thriving and creating bridges. And like you've taught us, like I'm sure Nidhi as well, like you've taught us so much, very, very thoughtfully spoken. And for anyone who is listening and who sees themselves in Divya's story, whether you're a first gen, second gen, or supporting someone who is, remember that your experience is valid, your struggles are real, and your resilience is remarkable. Thank you, as usual, for listening to Chocolate and Spice Two Brown Women Talk. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen. Visit our website at chocolateandspicetalk.com for show notes and more conversations like this one.
And as always, we love hearing from you. So please share your stories with us at hello@chocolateandspicetalk.com or DM us on Instagram. Your voice matters and your story certainly deserves to be heard. Take care of yourself and see you next week. Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Divya.
Thank you.
Thank you.